or a short form from the phrase ad-da'watu ilallah. Ad-da'watu ilallah. As Allah said, for example, through Prophet Yusuf, verse 108 in Surah Yusuf, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرًا. Say, this is my way. I invite to Allah with certain knowledge. So, the term is actually ad-da'watu ilallah, inviting people, or the invitation to Allah. And naturally, it being the mission of the messengers of Allah, it is something which is highly regarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has praised it. He has praised those who do it. He said, for example, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. Who is better in speech than one who calls to Allah, does righteous deeds, and says, indeed, I am among the Muslims. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ added to that, saying, مَنْ دَلَّ عَلَى خَيْرٍ فَلَهُ مِثْلُ أَجْرِ فَاعِلِهِ. Whoever directs someone to good will gain the same reward as the one who does good. So calling others to Allah earns for those who call them the same reward as those who do the good. Furthermore, the Prophet ﷺ had said, لَأَنْ يَهْدِيَ اللَّهُ بِكَ رَجُلًا خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنْ أَنْ يَكُونَ لَكَ حُمُرُ النَّعَمِ. For Allah to guide someone by your hand is better for you than having red camels. Of course, red camels today may not have any meaning. But in a society where people raise camels, it's known that red camels are rare. It's rare. And they're the most prized of the camels. So for us, we would say it would be the equivalent to Rolls Royces. Better for you than to have a Rolls Royce, the most valuable means of transportation in this world, right, in terms of cars. Really what it's addressing is that it is more valuable than anything in this world. That Allah would guide someone by your hand. And we also note that it is due to this calling to Allah, fulfilling this responsibility, that Allah referred to the Muslim nation as being the best of nations. Allah said in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 159, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You are the best nation raised up for humankind. You enjoin righteousness, forbid corruption, and you believe in Allah. You enjoin righteousness and you forbid corruption. That is the essence of the message, because that is what Islam is about. Islam is about affirming righteousness and prohibiting corruption. Whether it is in economics, whether it is in social organization, whether it is in spiritual relationships, interpersonal relationships, that is the message of Islam. It is one of righteousness in our dealings and prohibiting corruption. So that characteristic which distinguished the Muslim Ummah, gave it the title of being the best of nations, is naturally the same characteristic which makes the individual the best of individuals. As we said earlier, Allah said, who is better than the one who calls to Allah? Who is better in speech? Following the same principle. Now, with regards to the obligation of da'wah, scholars have identified da'wah, or the calling to Allah, as a community obligation, an obligation on the community as a whole. That is referred to as, what is it called? What do they call a community obligation? Fard Ain? No. Fard Kifaya. Fard Kifaya. Meaning that if someone or some ones from among the community fulfill this responsibility, then it is removed from the community as a whole. That is Fard Kifaya. Right? As Allah said in Surah Ali Imran, verse 104, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Let there arise among you a group, that is some, let there arise among you a group, inviting to all that is good, enjoining righteousness, and forbidding evil. They are the successful ones. That is the group obligation. So, in general, we can say that da'wah is an obligation on the Muslim community as a whole. We don't really have what we may call missionaries per se. You know, as Christianity has people who are trained, and that's all their job is to call people to their belief system. Right? Among Muslims, it is the responsibility of the community as a whole. Now, some people, due to the fact that they are more willing to take up that responsibility, they may be identified as missionaries amongst them. But to say a professional missionary, really, this is not something which was known in the early generations. In our times, maybe in some of our institutions, we have started to develop something similar. But that really wasn't the norm for the earlier generations. It was the community as a whole. It was a responsibility on Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, but then it became the responsibility on his companions, his followers, to convey that message to humankind. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the last of the messengers. And he was a messenger to all of humankind. Of course, his message did not reach us through him directly. It came through others. Those who studied under him, his disciples, his companions, then their disciples and companions, and as generations passed, it increased and increased till it reached us. There were people carrying that message. However, as Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah, the former Mufti of Saudi Arabia, had said, at a time when there is a shortage of callers, when evil is prevalent and ignorance dominates, da'wah becomes fard ayn on everyone according to their ability. At a time when there is a shortage of callers, and that is our time, isn't it? There's a shortage of callers in the community here. How many people are involved in calling to Allah? Very few. Most people are just living their lives, everyday normal lives, interacting with non-Muslims around them and not saying anything to them about Islam. They may live, they may work with non-Muslims, talking about everything under the sun. Talking about their cars, talking about their aspirations, their holidays, their children, their studies, their homes, talking about everything under the sun but Islam. That is the norm, isn't it? So we have a time where there are shortage of people who are calling to Allah. And evil is prevalent. Evil, corruption is prevalent. This is a product of the globalization of Western culture, which is a decadent and corrupt culture, which is filtering down to all levels of the society. So, at such a time, it becomes fard ayn, which is the individual responsibility on each and every Muslim according to his or her ability, naturally. As Allah said, ittaqullah mastata'tum, fear Allah as much as you are able. This is an obligation to the extent of your ability, because what is beyond your ability, of course, Allah is not asking you to do. So, whatever knowledge you have, no matter how limited it may be, you are under the obligation of conveying that knowledge. That is your ability. You have that much, you need to convey it. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana," call to the way of your Lord with wisdom and good preaching. That's in Surah Nahl, verse 125. That addresses that individual responsibility. It's a command to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, an obligation on him, and naturally on all those who followed him. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in order to make it as clear as possible to each and every one of us that we all carry this responsibility, he said, "Ballighu anni walau aya." Convey whatever you have learned from me, even if it be only a single verse from the Quran. Even if it be only a single verse from the Quran. And I'm sure each and every one of you knows Qul huwallahu ahad. Is there any amongst you who doesn't know Qul huwallahu ahad? No? Everybody knows Qul huwallahu ahad. Translate Qul huwallahu ahad for me, please. Yeah. Okay, say He is Allah alone. Qul huwallahu ahad. Well, ahad, sometimes people translate it as one. Say He, Allah, is one. But a more accurate translation is uniquely one. Uniquely one. Not just one, meaning I can say to you, I have one pen, but you can have one pen also. You know, everybody here could have one pen. That's one. Wahid. And that's amongst Allah's names also. Abdul Wahid is a acceptable name. Al-Wahid is one of Allah's names. But Al-Ahad, Ahad indicates not only oneness but unique oneness. Meaning one like whom there is no other. One like whom there is no other. And if you listen to the meaning of the rest of that surah, Surah Ikhlas, or also called Surah At-Tawheed, that is what it is speaking about. The uniqueness of Allah. Allahu Samad. Lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. All of this addresses the uniqueness of Allah. He is one and unique in His oneness. In everything related to Him, He is unique. He isn't born, everything else is born. He doesn't give birth, everything else gives birth. He is a Samad, everything needs Him. He needs nothing, everything else needs. He's in need of something else, ultimately in need of Him. وَلَمْ يَكُلْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. And there is nothing similar to Him. Now, if we look at the other religions,